I'm Greg. I'm Hi guys. Uh Thanks for coming. So, tonight's monthly music meeting is about promoting your band. So, out of curiosity, I'd please if you can raise your hands. Who all brought stuff to hand out for your bands tonight? There's one, two. Okay. Uh I'm glad you're here then. For the rest of you, all but you two, because this would have been a good promotional opportunity where you could have passed stuff out. If you don't, if there are people here that you don't recognize, you could promote your band in theory if that's what you wanted to do. So, um, okay. First things first. I don't know if you all have packets. You're welcome to grab some. Uh, they're just a bit of an outline, so that way uh, I don't lose my train of thought, which I normally do with relative ease. Bless you. Okay, first things first. Um, for promotion, there is no right or wrong way to do things. And in fact, well, no. See, things that I would think are wrong have been successful. So I'm not one to. Yeah, well, okay, maybe there are, but like, people have gotten somewhere if with things that I would not support in any fashion. Suppose it doesn't necessarily make them right, but still. Um, yeah, well, maybe. Um, so, additionally, if I had assembled like a series of really awesome ways that everyone could take and promote their band because they were really good and unique and special, they would no longer be unique and special. Uh, Therefore rendering them useless, and you get the playing field would be leveled yet again. So the trick, in my opinion, is to always kind of find your strengths, downplay your weaknesses. Um, and example, um, I thought he was going to be here tonight. I have a guitar student. His name's Wilder Filatico. He is the most metal human I've ever met in my life, and he writes more music than anyone I've ever met in my life. And his strength is, it's both of those. The fact that he is more metal than anyone and writes more music than anyone. So what he does to promote how metal he is he releases one metal record per month, and it's insane. And it's not that he just releases one metal album a month. They're actually really spectacular if you are into extreme metal. Yeah, he does it all in his bedroom on his own. His strength is the quality of which he writes and the frequency in which he can put it out. And because of that, this project is pretty small, and it's just one dude in a bedroom, but it's not hugely successful by any means, but it's each month with each release, it's growing pretty consistently. So it's cool to see. So to me, that's just a fun example of finding a strength and utilizing it to your best ability. Okay. Um, so, branding. You are not just a band, you are a brand. I can't stress that enough. And I see a lot of bands. Uh, they don't necessarily achieve that as well as they probably could. And there's some simple things that you can do. Uh, but things to keep in mind. Uh, in today's music industry, most people are going to see your band before they hear it, and they might not see you perform, but they are going to see your graphic representation in one way or another, whether it's your logo or font or cover page on whether it's YouTube or Bandcamp or whatever. They're going to see it first and foremost. I can't stress how important it is to have some form of professional graphic branding. And to me, there's a difference between someone who, illegally downloaded Photoshop and it can kind of like put something together, versus someone who knows how to create graphics for musicians. Uh, to have someone, I'll always use Justin, my friend here on the laptop, doing amazing graphic design right here already. He's the best band brander I've ever worked with, but is up there in my all time favorites with people who get paid handsomely. Sorry that you don't get paid handsomely for your work. You'll be a Derek Hess one day. Um, so having someone who deals with music makes all the difference in the world. At least to me. Um, they already know what what size and dimensions things are. You're not going to have any sort of pixelated art as your neighbor who downloaded Photoshop's like, oh, I can totally make you a cover photo, and they put it online and it's really pixelated and terrible. Having a professional brand, it it's one of the most important things you can do today because everything is digital. So paying someone a small amount for a digital file, a Photoshop file that you could manipulate later and reuse and resize, um, it's just of utmost importance. Uh, Same thing with photography. Uh, I feel like, especially these days, anyone can go out and get a nice camera and take a picture. But having someone who takes pictures for a band, or for musicians, for a living, or does whether it's live shots or stage shots, I can't stress that enough to have good good photographic representation of what your band is. Personally, I almost never see a staged shot that I like when it's like a bunch of guys in black t-shirts with asymmetrical haircuts all going the same way and you can't read the logo, or it's just black t-shirts with neon fonts and you can't read it anyways. That stuff absolutely kills me. And so if you can figure out a way to find some sort of good branding in that regard, go for it. But always make sure that you're dealing with someone who it's not their first time taking a picture of a band. If you're hiring a wedding photographer to take your staged band shots, it's probably not going to go very well. Um, so something that's always worth doing, make a list of your favorite bands or bands that are successful in your genre, and then see what they're doing. So if they have, if they have a cool take or a cool spin on their staged shots, their staged photos, try that, or an offshoot of it. It's worth doing. It's worth doing. Um, so, okay, consistency in graphic representation. Uh, I'm a big fan of bands that have a cool, identifiable logo. Those logos, I mean, you can see them. There's stickers all over the place here. Uh, Good ones are obvious. You can read them with ease. You can immediately represent, or like their brand is represented to you, and you can always kind of think back on it. Some of these other ones are really tough to read, or maybe it was a cool drawing but it didn't translate to a sticker. Things like that. Sadly, that's the good majority of a lot of these stickers that are up here. Um, so, uh, a band that I'll reference a lot tonight because I think they do it right, uh, and probably among the best that I've seen, is a band from Chicago, and they've played here a couple times, called Hidden Hospitals. Um, I'm just repeatedly blown away by how good their graphics and branding are. Now, fortunately, their singer, that's what he does for a living, so uh, he's able to take this, that kind of role with the band. And I brought some stuff. Here's a couple download cards that they give out. The Hidden Hospitals logo to me is brilliant. It's just a couple lines and a plus or a cross, however you want to look at it. You could see it as a pair of H's, or you can see it just as something that's easy to replicate with a keyboard. You don't necessarily need anything fancy to be able to recreate the logo in ASCII, or using a keyboard to create this. They can just use a couple vertical lines and a plus, which is awesome. So it's very easy for them to add it to a Facebook post or any number of things that they're doing. Um, Another thing on here is fonts. They always use the same font, and what you're going to find is that with most brands, not just bands, but most brands usually have some sort of font that it'll be on their videos, on all of their print media. It's consistency, and that just is another layer of depth to help assemble your brand. Justin, always feel free to join in because you're the man for this.
They have what's called style guides. Basically, most brands that are out there, they have, okay, these are our colors. This is how you're applicable use of our logo. You can't have our logo in color on a black background. You see it on a black background. You have to do it in white or something. So they have such standard guidelines. Not that you have to go to that level, but the idea of
Um, Now, I'm not expecting you guys to immediately say, "Oh, this is the font and this is the color and this is the logo that works for me." Uh, Most people, I like to think that I'm fairly keenly, like I'm keenly looking for that on just about everything, not just with music, but just in branding in general. Uh, but I couldn't come up with that stuff to save my life. That's why I hired Justin. So for Greg's guitar lessons, he came up with my style guide, the most brilliant uh, logo I think ever. But my colors are gray and this neon green ish. I wouldn't have picked them, but they're perfect. They're great. I love them, and I couldn't live without them. And everything I do now uh, references those colors all the time. Everything. Um, so, logo, fonts, and colors. Consistency. How many of you guys do your own band's graphics? Say CJ, I know. Okay. Okay. Good to know. Um, so I listed a handful of things on here um, that are just worth trying to get consistency on. Any sort of flyers that you have. If you're gonna play a show, like if you're gonna play a show at the Oasis, email your logo. If you have the Photoshop flyer or file, or email that in so that way that your brand and your band could be accurately represented. You don't just have to don't force the booking agent or promoter to try and come up with your logo on their own. Always make it easier.
Likewise, email the Oasis and tell them they should make their logos
Yeah, yeah. That is true. We're getting there. So all the cover photos. I mean, these days, like that's what's been in for a little bit now is some sort of larger photo or photo collage at the top of whatever the primary social network is. So obviously, Facebook has been the big one. Twitter, uh, and Twitter is a little different because they don't really have as much of a cover photo as they have sidebars. And then Bandcamp has their big top cover photo, and YouTube even has one now. And YouTube's nice because they give you a template, and it says like you can download the Photoshop file, and you can check your logo or your cover photo with their file, and it'll say this works with like on an iPhone, this works with a computer screen, and this size is what you need to fit in for a television because that's people watch YouTube on TV now, which is unbelievable. So it's definitely worth making sure that your graphics and branding are consistent across all things. Uh, and based off of the bands that email and Facebook, the Oasis to play shows, uh, most bands don't do that. But I think that the types of bands that are kind of all over the place and not consistent from website to website are also the bands who are not here tonight. So I'm guessing that most of you guys are on your game. So we'll be back to that. Okay, so physical handouts. Um, Maybe I'm old, but I still like physical handouts. I feel like at this point, the internet is so cluttered. At least the sites that I and probably you guys go to frequent a lot are cluttered with nothing but constant band spam in one way or another. And because of that, since there is so much band spam, hey, there's Wilder. You should go talk to him about metal records. So, um, anyways, I was saying, I feel like there is some value in still having in some form of physical, consistent media. So those hidden hospitals cards are great examples, because I still have those. I already had both of their albums, and when I walked up to their merch tables and I saw those, and they're like, "Oh yeah, those are the download cards for the records." I'm like, "Let me have them. Those are amazing." Just because I was so impressed with, like I said, everything that they had done in terms of how they had assembled their brand. So, print flyers. Let's see here. Now, sadly, when I was assembling this Word document the other day, I lost half of it after 4 hours of work. So I kind of had to rebuild it. So it's missing a couple things, but I'll assemble it here. Physical handouts. If you're going to mail something, there's something called a one sheet. Not that I imagine that there's a lot of mailing going on, but there's a lot of value in having this for email as well. And I attached a one sheet here. It's the last page for a cool band called Mock Orange, one of my all-time favorite bands. This is just a one sheet for a record they had released once upon a time, and this was standard stuff for a long time. Whenever a band would try to get booked or try to get apply to have be represented by a management company or booking agent or a label or anything like that, a one sheet was pretty standard affair, and they're almost all set up in this fashion. Where on the left hand side, in this case, like I said, it's referencing a record that had just come out. So you have the album cover, track list, street date, genre, and then a little bit on tour, contact information, and then on the right side, a bio, and bio is a whole other story. We'll get to those later. Bullet points of interest, because honestly, I see the bio, I'm like, I'll get to that later. Points of interest that are just simple sentences for a slow musician like myself, sign me up, and I'll dive into those. And then some press quotes, if you guys have press quotes. And a nice little staged band picture, although that doesn't really represent well with poor Oasis toner copies, black and white copies. But regardless, this is a great example of something you guys can assemble that still has value, in my opinion. It's pretty great. The only thing that this particular one does not have, because this band is a little more well-known, not incredibly well-known, but just, they have some form of representation. One of my favorite things in the world, for fans of, because I don't know what band you sound like, and chances are you probably sound like a few different bands. You're just not like, oh yeah, we only sound like 1987 Metallica. It's probably not that specific. It's probably a handful of bands. So because of that, it's for Libria, for fans of Shiner, Failure, Hum, Life and Times, Ocean Size. Now I'm like, oh, I have a pretty good idea as to what they sound like. So it's usually worth putting a for fans of somewhere, especially on the one sheet. But honestly, I just use it everywhere. I'm such a big fan of that. Okay, so print flyers, 8.5 by 11. That's what we have here, and that's what's posted up all over the Oasis. The 11 by 17. I'm still a big fan. Here's something for the Oasis. You can get something like this, and then just write it in. It doesn't have to be glossy or anything like this. I think this was a Grand Printing. Grand Printing, which is a pretty cool company. Oh, was a pretty cool company. Thanks, Kinko's. But you don't have to have full gloss color flyers like this. You can go make one up, at Kinko's, and what you can do is you can just write in Sharpie, on there. So like Oasis, playing the Oasis on tax day 4/15, monthly music meeting, and then mail it out, and then it's like, oh, we're playing at the Metro next week, and you send that in. And if you go to the Metro, you're going to see about 100 of those, just kind of right up the staircase. There's just a wall of usually the long flyers, not just the 8.5 by 11s.
Those are pretty cheap too.
Yeah, and so if you have your branding and graphics, consistent, it's worth the investment. The one thing that I have a hard time recommending doing, unless you guys are like absolutely confident you are the four best friends that anyone could have. You're the wolf pack of bands, right? Because the worst I've seen is when people send in those long, gorgeous 11 by 17 flyers, and the band gets on stage, and you're like, wait a minute, one of those guys isn't in this awesome flyer, huh? So it's worth using just the graphic design as opposed to band members. Just a thought. Quarter sheet flyers as well. If you have a good 8.5 by 11 flyer, you can usually you could take the file to Kinko's and they can quarter it for you. It can be done in Illustrator, and you can literally just quarter your page, or you can, I think in Word there's a preset where you can print quarter sheets, and then just cut them up. You know, if you get like the long, I'm sure there's a real name for it, but the long Kinko's cutter where you just put a few pieces of paper down and you kind of slice them. But then you have handouts, or you could leave them up front at the merch table that we have sitting by the front door for all bands to see. Blows my mind that that thing isn't just like filled up with stuff all the time. If I had a functional band that was promoting stuff, I would have like a little merch corner of that table up front set up with all sorts of stuff. But that's me. So other options, postcards. I think there's a couple postcards up front. There's a nice website. There's a couple of them. I listed them here. One, if you're going to pay for stuff, I'm a big fan of Jack Prints. They've been a merch company for a long time, and they've got it down to a science. They're really easy to work with. I've had a lot of success with them, and they're pretty cheap. I think they're out of Ohio. And then Club Flyers, just a cheap, generic online printing company. But what they have going for them, unlike other places, is that they will give you 500 4x6 postcards for free. You pay for shipping, and they're, I think it ends up being like $10. But if you have a good-looking postcard of something, whether it's for an event or it's just for like the new release of a record, it's free. On one side, you can full color whatever you want. It's amazing. On the other side, it just says Club Flyers for 500 cards for free. Clubflyers.com. Small price to pay. If you're in a bind and you only have $10 and need 500 copies of something in full gloss postcard, that's a pretty good option. So, next up would be CDs. I know CDs aren't as valuable as they once were, that's for sure. But if you wanted some form of a CD to hand out or to give away at shows, if you're going to do it yourself, Uline has some pretty good options. And what I always recommend when you're getting CDs, just get plain, either silver or white ones. Nothing bums me out more when a band is like trying to be so professional and then they hand me a CD and right over the Memorex logo is their band name in Sharpie. It's like, oh, that bums me out, and like I'm already let down before I've even heard the music. So even if it's just something as simple as a white, the white CDs that are there, you could either print on them or they just make just plain white ones. You can get a lot of mileage out of those, and they're CDs are pretty cheap, so got that going for them. Another option with that is if you have a logo, if you've paid someone for like a decent logo, you can usually use that logo and go to rubberstamps.net and just get a rubber stamp of your logo. And then you could stamp those white CDs, cheaply and easily. Although you can't use normal ink, I recommend using an ink called Stays On, so that way it doesn't smear or destroy whoever took the time to actually take your CD and listen to it. It'd be pretty lame if you ruined their CD player. So it's worth using the permanent ink that won't spin off or melt off. So that's just an option if you want to make CDs. Do you guys still do CDs? Do people still make them? Yeah, okay, we're getting there. I was just curious, like, when was the last time any of you guys went out and bought a physical CD? Not like at a show, but just like went out and said, okay, there's a CD. I feel like I have to own this compact disc. Last week. What came out last week? What's that? I gotcha. What'd you get? I should have known. Yeah, nice. Cool. So yeah, it's just I was just curious. During there's the Facebook events that I'm guessing at least some of you have seen for tonight's event. And I try to post questions and try to get some form of feedback. You guys should respond on there on occasion. Yeah, and as Justin said, there are you can also do download cards, um, and there used to be a website called Drop Cards, which just made down like business cards for downloads. But Bandcamp has kind of taken the wind out of the sails because Bandcamp now you can come up with a download, uh, just as easily. They'll give you a link and they'll give you a code. So and they're already hosting your album. So hopefully you're all using Bandcamp if you have an album. And that's what Hidden Hospitals was doing is on this card here. I've got two different ones. So what they do is they actually host it on their own website and server, and they give you the code on here, which is pretty cool. And you can see that they're using stamps as well. I didn't even notice that. Just makes me like it even more. Okay, so distribution of physical media if you've assembled it. The obvious one is just go to shows, go to events. Tonight would have been good. Wilder, you could have brought metal CDs because there's a lot of metal people here. I know, that's what I'm saying. All of you guys, I hope in the future you bring some stuff. I mean, we have this table here with some, merch from record labels. I think there's still some leftover stuff from Top Shelf, which is cool. But, I'm envisioning, should this continue, if every band brings, a couple CDs or makes them or some stickers or whatever and leaves it there, I mean, that's a cool opportunity just to, get your band, hopefully a new potential audience member or listener. So things like that, any sort of show would be cool. Street teams. Have you guys seen a street team at all within the last couple of years? What's a street team? Excellent, man. It's almost like I had him ask that question because I wanted someone to ask it. Thank you for asking that question. Once upon a time, before the internet, I guess would probably be the best way to say it, for bands to promote, they would assemble groups of people, usually fans of the band, hopefully fans of the band, or suckers, who would go out and promote. So let's say the Escapers are playing the Oasis, right? And there's a garage band type show the weekend before. If none of you guys could make it to promote, maybe you'd have people in your street team or fans of your band that aren't necessarily friends, but people who are literally on board with and want to support and help your band, and they would show up and they would be the ones promoting for you. And they'd stand outside the show handing out, download cards or CDs or stickers or whatever it is that you were hoping to accomplish, which is pretty cool. I don't think that they work the same way. And now they try to make these virtual street teams. I don't think those work either. I think the internet is finally getting to the point where like aimless band spamming no longer has the effect that I think people initially hoped it had, but it didn't have it anyways. Yeah. My old band had a group of high school girls that would I'd be in the city on a weeknight at like late and just see them walking down the street. I'm like, what are you guys doing in Chicago? Shouldn't you be getting ready for school tomorrow? Like, oh, we're just promoting your band. I'm like, holy cow. It was weird. It was weird, but effective. They got people to shows. A cool example of once upon a time, there was a band. They were called Disturbed. Yeah, I think, fortunately. No, I think they're no longer a band. I think all of our wishes came true, and they stopped playing. No, I don't know. They were trying to make a name for themselves during one of the biggest eras of the street team, which is when the internet could assist a little bit, and you could email flyers out with relative ease, and back when Justin and my bands were really promoting hard and working a lot to try and make our name for ourselves in Chicago. No matter how hard we tried, Disturbed was like just miles ahead. They were promoting. They had what seemed like an infinite army of people promoting their band, and as it turns out, and like additionally, it's not just that they were promoting their band. All of the things that they were handing out, the CDs and flyers, it just looked so good. Uh, yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it morphed into CDs eventually. Uh, yeah. Yeah. Well, ironically, they'd be cool now if they put out their albums on cassette. Uh, but anyways, as it turns out, they were making a name for themselves, working really hard. Like regardless of their music, they were working really hard, and because of that, they were fortunate enough to get signed to a major label. Uh, but the way it worked out is the label's like, well, you guys have this whole grassroots promotion thing going. It's pretty unbelievable. So here's what we're gonna do. Don't tell anyone that you're signed. We will give you all of the promotional materials you need and help set up street teams, in a wider area, slowly but surely building your brand and your map. And they just kept at it for like another probably year. Like they were getting a lot of good shows, and like I said, their merch was getting a lot better. That all the things that they were handing out, but that was the biggest, most successful street team promotion I'd ever seen in my entire life. And it was being funded by whichever label they ended up getting signed to. And in the long run, I'd say it was probably a successful venture for them. But it happened at the exact right moment for any band to have success with a street team. So other print distribution that's worth looking into. Instrument shops, they almost all have like little corkboard things that you can put up a flyer for. Libertyville Music, Music Source, Music Center in Kenosha, Music Around. They all have things where you can put out your flyers or CDs. And I always check them. And I'm always looking for someone that that appeals to me. So like there's like a lot of '80s cover bands and all this terrible stuff. But I'm just looking for fans of, and I'll check it out and be like, oh, I don't like that band. Sorry. Okay. And then venues, like you could go to a show. If there's a band that's similar to whatever music that you play. So. I was at the Minus the Bear show at the Metro this last October, and afterwards I'm walking out, and there were the guys in Hidden Hospitals handing me not the fancy postcards, but a smaller one that they had made just to promote that they had a show that coming weekend. And watching them work is pretty great because they're not just like, here, have a flyer, we're playing a show, Hidden Hospitals. They're engaging their audience, they're talking to people. Chances are, if you just hand off a flyer to someone as they're walking out, you're probably not going to see that person ever again. But if you give them some sort of genuine pitch, like, hey, you liked Minus the Bear, I think there's a pretty good chance that you're going to like my band, and I have this free record that I'll give you to back it up. I really believe that you might like my band. And if you can start some form of a conversation, if you do that with 5 people, that's probably better than handing out 25 just blind flyers to people, because chances are you'll be picking those up as you're leaving because they just dropped them on the ground or threw them out, which is even worse, especially if you have things nice like this. Not that I'm expecting any of you guys to do this, but for your handouts, the Hidden Hospitals, these download cards, underneath it said, here's a stencil. It's not just a download card. Here's a stencil. If you like our record, brand something. It's brilliant. It's pretty clever. I'm really impressed with everything they do. Additionally, most venues have, if you're just driving by a venue and you have a handful of CDs or flyers or whatever it is that you're going to promote, they usually have some sort of table or area up front that you can drop them off at. The Oasis has the table. Metro has a huge one. For any big show that you guys have, you could probably hit 5 or 8 venues in Chicago and just put up stuff there out front. Never hurts. Although again, I feel like the print print media and physical handouts obviously is taking a backseat to all things on the internet. So that's why it's next. Social media. This is the fun stuff. If you can, align as many of your social names as you can. So, I put on here McDonald's Burgers or Burgers by McDonald's. I feel like a lot of bands do that. Like their Facebook will be, crappy band or .com/crappy band. And they go to Twitter and it's like, it's our crappy band was already taken. So, like crappy band theory or something like that. They add just like another word or something else, and it's like it's inconsistent. Additionally, that inconsistency now, as all the social media channels are trying to play nice together, you tag someone on Instagram and you tweet it out as well. Well, if their Twitter handle isn't the same as their Instagram handle, it's not going to link, or it'll just read as like @crappy band on Twitter, but it would be a functional clickable link on Instagram, which is unfortunate. So you got to make sure that you're planning ahead, and it's worth trying out a lot of different word collections to get it right, even if you have to kind of get creative. The band Two Star, theirs was I Love Two Star. Stick with what works. If you have a way to kind of put it all together, music by Crappy Band or Crappy Band music, however it is that you guys are going to put it together, try it, and make sure that you can register the same on all of your social media accounts. That's just a general social media thought. So question, is Facebook dying? Why? Yes. Good. I don't know if you guys saw the other day. There's an awesome, I'm really impressed with this guy. His name's Scott Evans. He writes for the amazing recording magazine called Tape Op. He's in a pretty cool band called Kowloon Walled City, which is just like this heavy, grindy, mean band. And he runs an awesome recording studio out in San Francisco. And he has a pretty active Twitter, and I follow it, and I try to contribute and go back and forth. And he had a pretty cool little conversation that developed the other day, and I posted it. I don't know if you guys checked it. I'm assuming that you didn't. But he, he said that he saw the first store actively disable their Facebook and just go full on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And I was like, wow, that makes total sense, because Facebook, like, your posts aren't getting to your audience anymore. They're making it pretty rough, and I don't. Hopefully, this isn't their defining MySpace moment. Hopefully, they figure it out, that they can probably still be a multi-billion-dollar company in time. But I'm worried that that ship has sailed. But I'm glad to see that a lot of people are already on, moving out. So for those who are still going to operate, deep into Facebook, there's a lot of ways to improve your Facebook page. Both the Bandcamp or the Bandpage apps you can install or download into your Facebook, and it essentially becomes players. The one thing that I think that the Bandpage app had going for it over the Bandcamp was that it could also do like pictures and videos and all the other fun stuff, and I don't think Bandcamp's app has that yet. Make sure that when you're dealing with Twitter and Instagram, it's probably worth having that share option to drop into Facebook still. If I know that Facebook could be on its way out. I personally am still having a hard time letting go, though. I still that's just me. It has meant so much, and I don't want to believe that they're gonna let it do what it appears like it's going to do. So we'll see how that goes. And then the other thing that you can do is Facebook groups. I think Facebook groups are incredible. They are, I've always been like a big internet forum nerd. Like gear, guitar gear, recording gear, all that stuff. I'm on all of those sites and have been since they pretty much started. And Facebook groups are everything I've wanted out of forums and more. So you can find your very specific, subgroup of whatever it is you're looking for, whether it's recording. The Oasis has a handful of groups. There's the Facebook band directory, um, and like the musicians classifieds and the gear trading and all that stuff. And also there's a vinyl trading one if you guys are it likes that way. It's not just me, Justin, and like two other people. You're welcome to join up, maybe trade a record. But I think that Facebook groups still have some form of value in promoting because then you're reaching your target audience. It's easy to find your group of whether it's La Dispute fans or whatever it is that you're trying to find. You can find them on there and say, hey, hopefully in a way that's not overtly band spammy, like where your first post in the group is just like, this is my band, check it out. Hopefully you contribute a little bit and maybe at some point, by the way, question. Yeah. Yeah, I think the way Bands in Town works is, at least as far as I can tell, because I've looked into it, and I feel like it's for audience members more so than bands themselves. And if like as for me, if whoever I've liked on Facebook, Bands in Town will analyze that under my music, and then whenever a band has a show coming up, it alerts me with an email or a pop up. So I mean, I think it's pretty cool. I'm still trying to figure out like as what the huge value could be for local bands and how to use that to their advantage. Yeah, level playing field. Cool. So you can make an event on bands in town. Interesting. Well, there you go. It's definitely something worth exploring. Like I've always been hesitant on apps like that, or like there's been other like through the years. There's always some form of a website like that. The other one, that I kind of lump under there would be Reverb Nation, and I'm still not 100% how. Yeah, yeah, Pure Volume would be another good one. Although Pure Volume started as something different, they just happened to ruin it really quickly. Uh, but Reverb Nation, like I feel like those types of things start off with good intentions and then are immediately overrun by the worst bands I've ever seen, and it bums me out. And so a lot of times when I see a band using Reverb Nation, it immediately makes me worry about what I'm about to hear or read. But that's just me. Uh, yeah, yeah. And I have a feeling that the majority of the people here they don't have their designs on becoming a bar band. But if you play your cards right, you might be able to pull it off. So don't sell yourself short. Uh, okay. So Twitter, I like Twitter. I think it's pretty cool. It's a very casual way to talk to bands and fans, and uh, like it's just it's a really excellent way to get some promotion these days. And I think what I like about it most compared to Facebook, even though Twitter, like I still don't know that they've fully achieved what it's going to be, nor am I sure that they know what it is yet. Uh, an example being the Twitter Music feature and app that they promoted so hard for about 6 weeks and then pulled the plug on maybe a month ago. Uh, but for what it is right now, there's a lot of value because unlike Facebook, with Facebook, I can make a post saying, "Hey, this event is tonight, and people should come out to it." And I might have like 3 or 4 likes, where I'm like, "Oh, good, people like it." It doesn't mean anything, but I posted on Twitter, and I got a handful of retweets. Like that to me is more valuable than a like. So and it's quantifiable, which is great. Everything on Twitter is quantifiable, and for a nerd like myself, that has a lot of value. So if you provide content, Twitter allows your fans and bandmates and everyone to share it with ease. I'm guessing you guys, when you post something on Facebook, your fans just don't generally share it. if you post an Instagram picture, I'm sure you'll never get a share. But if you post it on Twitter, people are like, oh, cool, retweet. Real quick. It's just that easy, and I feel like there's just a lot of value in that. So Instagram, I still don't have a good read on Instagram. I'm trying hard. I know it's a positive thing, but I'm still not sold as on the iOS to be full on band promotional tool. I feel like it's very difficult, and all the cool stuff that I try to put on Instagram for myself or for my business, I have to do it on a computer anyways, and then I have to somehow finagle a way to get it on iOS. And I don't like recording movies on an iPad or an iPhone or whatever, because obviously it's not as good. But Instagram has a pretty strong social network, and it's cool to see the behind the scenes aspect of bands. I love when bands post, in the studio or live shots and things like that. But really, Instagram to me, all it's doing is generating content that people share elsewhere most of the time. So it's ending up on Facebook or Twitter in one capacity or another. So I have a feeling Instagram's going to become more than it is now. But at the moment, it's just content generation, and which is fine because I think all bands need content. I was going to end this here with the promotional machine and about how you really need to work hard to generate content to promote to continue to give the perception that you're an active band, and Instagram is great for that. So YouTube, I'm a big fan of YouTube. I think that there's a lot to be gained there. So first things, people these days, again, in content generation, if you're trying to come up with stuff to throw at your audience, lyric videos these days are the new music video, and anyone with iMovie can do it with relative ease, which is cool. I highly recommend doing that. It just gives you an additional thing to promote. Also, I don't necessarily recommend doing a picture slideshow to a lyric video. You could just be as simple as an album cover and your lyrics going by. But I think it's pretty cool because I'm taking, for me personally, I'm digging deeper and deeper into what bands have to say and lyrics and things like that, and YouTube makes it real easy. And that way I get to listen along as opposed to just reading the lyrics on Facebook in a note or in an incredibly long status that I have to click see more, which I probably won't do because I'm lazy. So the other thing that you have going for you with YouTube is endless tags. You tag it correctly, you're gonna, you'll be on the sidebar, pretty easily for other cool videos. And it takes effort in terms of you have to develop videos of relatively consistent quality, and you have to have a handful of them. I think it might not be this way now, but as of a couple years ago, YouTube would essentially unlock various features, you've released or you've uploaded your 30th video, now you can have a video that's over 30 minutes on here, things like that. And the more views you get, more traffic you get, is going to improve your chances of where it's going to be, if it's in a featured video or a sidebar video for something else. I think it's great. YouTube is almost becoming its own, its own thing. You find people and artists. There are artists who only do stuff for YouTube, which just I think it's cool, blows my mind. But you don't really find their music anywhere else. You're not going to really find it on Bandcamp. It's on YouTube. That's what they're doing. But I'm guessing that if you're here, you're probably not a YouTube musician. So another cool online option is Reddit. I think that there's a lot of value in the various subreddits, especially for specific bands. I think there's some pretty cool things going on there. Even though it looks like it's 1994 technology of the internet, it's very, very efficient in terms of regulating quality. And as long as you're not overly spammy, you can actually promote your band on there, which is pretty cool. And if you you can find genre specific subreddits, or you could just find band specific subreddits. And I put on here there's a band subreddit for the Deer Hunter, which is cool, but it's run and moderated by Casey, the guy behind the Deer Hunter. Pretty awesome. You know, that's a pretty easy way to get connected with other bands, larger bands. So SoundCloud is another cool social network, but I feel like SoundCloud, as amazing as it is, it's been stolen by electronic music artists, and like you're not going to have as much success as a rock band in terms of the social network that lives inside of SoundCloud. But SoundCloud itself still has a lot of value because you can embed that code on your website or whatever, and have that player for whatever song or record available, whether you're going to put it on your blog or website or Facebook or whatever. But something cool with SoundCloud is they allow you to color code it. So like on my website that's primarily gray and like this neon green, my player is gray and neon green. So it adds consistency to your brand, and you're always trying to look far more professional than you are. And SoundCloud makes that pretty easy. Websites. Do any of you guys have an actual website for your band? 1, 2, okay. Yeah, 2.5. Or 2 and a wave. So, personally, I think a website has value, especially for as cheap as they are, because nothing's worse than finding like a CD or a sticker or something that a band gave me to promote themselves, and it's like myspace.com/crappy band, and it's like, oh, bummer. If they would have got crappyband.com or crappyband.net, that still would have been have some sort of value, but they didn't. They cheaped out, or they just didn't have the forward thought that maybe MySpace would someday be owned by Justin Timberlake, and it's not going to be a successful band promotional tool anymore. So for the $9 to $15 a year it costs to get crappyband.com, in my opinion, it's worth it. You don't necessarily have to have a website to own the domain. You can get the domain and then forward it to your Bandcamp or your Facebook page or whatever it is that you use for your band. So that way you don't have to make this huge investment of buying a website. It can just be band, like I said, crappyband.com, and I go there, and next thing I know, the domain's actually bandcamp.com/crappyband. And I'm like, oh, they just used forwarding. That works. There's nothing wrong with that, especially since Bandcamp can link to all of your social media, have your merch on there, have your music set up. I mean, it's great for that. But if you wanted to make a website, Bandpage, which I referenced, is also an app for Facebook. You can actually set it up so Bandpage is just one page of all the pertinent info. It works pretty well, so that way you don't necessarily have to have hosting or anything like that, and it'll still be crappyband.com, and it'll have like your picture, your upcoming shows, and I think it's pulling all the info from everything that you put into Facebook. So it's pretty consistent and easy. Or if you want to go all out, WordPress is a cool option. It's a blog format of pre-made websites that you can find. If you search band or musician template or WordPress template, you will find a lot of cool options that are just ready to go. And then you hand it off to a guy like Justin here, if he's taking side jobs anymore. I don't even know. Maybe not. You hand it off to a guy like CJ over there, who's has got a merch up and coming merch and design company, right? What's it called? Half Jaw. Yeah, and people are giving me the look like it's pretty good. So I'm gonna have to take their word for it. So you hand it off to a guy who knows what they're doing, assuming that you don't know what you're doing yourself, and they could doctor it up with all the correct graphics and branding. Reverb Nation, like I said, I'm not sold on it, but it does have a cool collection of tools that might be worth checking out. Bandcamp we've kind of already talked about, which is fun. A lot of good options there. Forums, gear forums, band forums. If you're active in there, I found out about half of the cool bands I listen to from forums. There's still value there. Additionally, you can have, usually on a forum, if you have an account, you have a signature at the bottom which is just like like almost like a signature on email. You can have like a like if I'm Wilder, the signature on my forum for extremedeathmetal.com is going to be one free metal album per month. Click here. If I liked extreme death metal as much as he did, and I saw someone saying, "Whoa, one free metal album a month," I'm probably going to click the link. So there's some value in throwing that on the signature if you're in a forum. So electronic press kits, do you guys use those? Working on it? Like I've rarely seen one where I'm like, okay, now I fully get that these things can exist for a reason. Most of the time when I'm looking at electronic press kit, they're done so poorly that it turns me off. I would have just been fine with collection of links in the bio, or even the one sheet. I think there's it's easy to read and easy to lay out, and if it's in an HTML based email, you could add dynamic clickable links in there. So but we are in an age where the internet still has a lot of value, so electronic press kits can be made with relative ease, and I added a couple of options on here. Sonic Bids and Artist Card are both sites that help you assemble your electronic press kit if that's the option you want to go. Although, I don't know, I just don't see, like I said, for me, I don't see a lot of them that I really like, and there is such thing as like poorly done promotion where it can kind of turn off your audience. So just a thought. PR companies. There are companies that just handle your promotion and your public relations, and for a small investment, you can actually have some pretty cool success. So Justin and I have a friend who's in a metal band called Coke Goat, which is the greatest band name ever, I think. And like they play some cool, weird, progressive, black indie metal. I don't even know what you'd call it. It transcends genres. It can only be described as Coke Goat. But they're getting all these like really good reviews, like solid write-ups in really respectable magazines and news, like online publications and blogs, and like a lot of them. And I was like, man, like this band must be just bigger and more successful than I had anticipated. And then I saw my friend Ed, and I said, man, are you guys bigger and more successful than I anticipated? And he said, no, we just hired a PR company. And I'm like, what did that set you back? He's like, well, it wasn't easy, but there's 6 band members, so it makes a lot, it cuts it down a lot, but it was $400. I'm like, $400? That's it? Like, that's nothing. For the amount of positive press that they got, it turned into, man, I think he said after the first, like, big wave of reviews, he sold 30 vinyls, and they had, like, I think it was over 1,000 downloads on Bandcamp. There's something insane like that. Like, $400? I've spent $400 far worse things to try and promote my band unsuccessfully. So, now here's the thing. Earache Compound, that's who, or Ear Split Compound, that's who they used. They're probably not going to take every band that is willing to pay $400. They're probably going to want to believe that the music that you're doing is going to have some sort of positive success. But if you hit up, if you, as a band, you emailed 50 publications and said, hey, I have an amazing record, I really believe in it, I think everyone's going to like it, please review it. No one's, maybe one place is going to care. But if you use a company that is designed to be the go-between, usually those publications will listen to the company. So, for Ear Split Compound, they obviously have some pretty good press contacts, and they're able to get a hold of, I don't even remember who all they had. I think one of them was Illinois Entertainer, but I think that was for their EP release show. Yeah, Invisible Orange, and like a lot of well-respected heavy blog sites and things like that. So, I mean, if I had a band that was playing that kind of music, $400, $100 a band member in theory, That's a small price to pay for that kind of positive press that you can constantly reuse, because one, that's content that you get to share over all of your social networks, but two, it's reinforcing your brand anytime you get some sort of positive review, and you can use that to help promote your band in any capacity, whether it's on the website or on your one sheet, things like that. Okay, finish out here. A couple random thoughts. Uh, Still, the best promotion, regardless of how good all of your physical branding and your graphic representation is, uh, being good is the best possible promotion. There have been countless bands that have poor visual representation, but they're still so good that you're just like, wow, that's awesome. I'm glad I have this. Uh, Good songs, good recording, good performance, and also, if you can tie in good visual branding, home run, grand slam. Uh, so the example that works for me is Cloud Kicker. You guys all familiar with Cloud Kicker now? I mean, half of you are probably students of mine, so I've forced you to listen to Cloud Kicker. Yeah, if you know me, you know Cloud Kicker. Harmony Central was once upon a time was a valuable music website that was then bought by Guitar Center and run into the ground immediately. But their forums used to be cool, and maybe 2005, 2006, some guys like, hey, check this out. I found this on the Superior Drummer or the Tune Track forums. This guy just does this in his bedroom, and it blew my mind that you could actually write and record cool stuff in your bedroom that sounded like that, and it sounded perfect, and the riffs were insane, and the production was huge, and I was like, this is so good. So I checked it out, and everything was free, and no, this was 14, or what's the one with 14 nights? Portmanteau. Yeah, Portmanteau. I'm probably mispronouncing it, but that just like, the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I just sat there listening with my jaw dropped on the MySpace player of all things. Man, if you can create an audience member off the old school MySpace player, you are doing something right. And it was just so good, and because it was good, it was spreading across the internet, because for every one of me there was probably 50 other people who were also in their bedroom, looking at their MySpace player like, how is a guy doing that, and sharing it and sharing it and sharing it. And even though it was just a MySpace player, he blew up immediately, so much so that he had to take it off MySpace, and he ended up going to Bandcamp, because he has always kind of been in relatively close lockstep with the front of internet trends, and was quick to jump off MySpace when he saw that it was going the way it was going.
I got a different take on that. I thought he was always kind of behind. Like, go back far enough and research Cloud Kicker. I feel like he learned over time what the best way to promote his band was, his project. That he didn't start off making the right decision.
Well, yeah, I mean, like in the early stages, but like, I think what the one that does the one record, if you guys all know who this artist is, and I don't think it has a title. It's just the three symbols. I think that was the first one that was that like represented the new stage of Cloud Kicker, because that was the first one on Bandcamp, I think. And he slowly but surely learned about how to put the album up for free, and that Bandcamp does have a cap of how many free downloads you could have. I think most musicians hope that they hit that cap. It's like you're doing something right if 200 people a month want to download your record for free. It's a huge step in the right direction. But yeah, basically, I'm just using him as an example because he's so good that a guy in his bedroom in Cincinnati, is making music, and a group of musical nerds in north of Chicago are talking about him. So I wish we were all that lucky. So know your audience. Like, don't just be promoting at people who aren't going to like your music. So if any of you are out promoting at a Nickelback concert or something like that, please just know who your audience is and go promote there. Additionally, I see a lot of, I'm probably friends with a good half of you on Facebook anyways. I see a lot of you constantly posting on Facebook like, go like this, go like my band page, or watch this music video and stuff like that. Like for me, that gets old pretty quick because if I'm friends with you, I know about your band, and if I like your band, I've liked your band. Uh, so I get all of those notifications. Well, I used to until Facebook started making you have to pay for them in order for me to get them. But like over promoting to your friends and family, I think runs its course, and you can ultimately end up either doing too much damage or just kind of turning people off to what you're trying to achieve. I'm just a firm believer in just letting your audience grow naturally. If people like your music, they will like your music. They will follow you and show up. But like if you're trying to get your friends' parents to like your Facebook page for your extreme death metal band, chances are they probably don't actually like your music. So there's not a huge point to having them following you on Facebook. If the difference between having 200 followers and 201 followers means that, I don't think it's getting you anywhere. But that's just my take on it. And then over promoting, don't over promote. Don't constantly spam your stuff like multiple times a day on the same page. I feel like that turns off your audience. Like a lot of times, I'll hide a band or something like that if I'm or a band member if I'm friends with them on Facebook if they over promote the same thing all the time, because like I said, I'm getting it. I know that you have a show. I know that you have a new song or whatever it is. And you're promoting to the wrong person because I already know. You should be trying to find the people who don't know who you think would like it. So just constantly, sharing on the same general social media. Like I said, I think it kind of hurts. Ultimately, ends up hurting what you have going on. The last couple of pages here in the handout are things that at the Oasis we've developed. One's just a random list of things that bands have used to promote their events here. That thought, hey, maybe you guys could try this. It any time that you have a Facebook post, if it starts to generate likes or shares, uh, the audience grows, and they will actually Facebook will allow it to show up on more timelines or in more tickers on the side of the page, things like that. So worth if Facebook is the route you take to promote an event or a show or something like that, trying to encourage people to share it so that way it shows up in more timelines is worth it. Do any of you guys, by the way, do any of you spend money on Facebook to promote your events? Just to promote the page? Any luck? Yeah, yeah,
My experience, doing an ad is not necessarily a good idea now because of like trying to get likes for your page. There's a lot of click farms out there that are inundating those types of paying money to Facebook, and you're still getting essentially spam likes.
yeah,
Promoting the page or a post will actually get you the traffic that you want.
yeah,
So that's kind of their new. I think they realize their ads are failing in
yeah.
that regards. They're trying to just
I don't know, like maybe 1,500 of the most attractive women all of a sudden liked Greg's guitar lessons on Facebook. So I think I'm doing something right. I'm glad I invested. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's unfortunate because like it could be such a valuable tool, but uh, the second that they needed to make some cash off of it, Zuckerberg has to pay those twins something. What's up, Zach? Ooh, area targeting.
I've tried that. Like when I ran an ad that went to the United States, let's say I'm selling water chicken in that area, I still got quite a number of likes from outside of
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot more value to me in having, like, if it's having 500 likes, which is, half of it is people that don't actually like it, or having 200 like legitimate people who are interested in whatever it is I'm doing. I'd rather have that. Like, the days of padded stats are over. Like, fake MySpace plays or fans or whatever it was. That was the beginning of the end of the band promotion on internet for me, because, and right into that was mp3.com, where you could fake how many plays or how many fans you have. And I think the same thing now is in Facebook, with however many likes that you have, like, like the spam accounts and whatnot. Yes, they are. Yeah. Um, with YouTube, uh, not that I'm assuming any of you, myself included, are huge Linkin Park fans, uh, but there was a pretty awesome podcast. This is a couple years ago now, like many years ago. Now I think about it. But once upon a time, Linkin Park was the most viewed band on YouTube, and then in a dispute with the record label and YouTube, the record label's like, you know what? Take all of our videos off. You don't get our content. You're not going to survive without us. Uh, which is, that's why, it's probably why the record labels are so well off at the moment. But then, obviously, the record labels caved eventually, and it's like, oh, we should probably put all this stuff back on. And Linkin Park lost all of their stats, and they were really frustrated, because, I mean, obviously, like, Linkin Park's probably not going to compete with what's the most viewed band now, or like the Korean singer. Psy, yeah. Like, obviously, I doubt that band is going to be fortunate enough to write a song as crafty as what that guy was able to put out. But they would still be pretty well off, and there'd be a lot of value in having those kind of stats. And the last thing on here, how to promote your show. This is just at the Oasis. This is just a guideline, because a lot of bands don't know how to promote consistently. And our lovely booking director, Julie, assembled this great looking promotional calendar in terms of what you could be doing. Simple bullet points. Uh, just things that, things to consider. I mean, hopefully you guys are all promoting properly, and everyone in the band is doing their part. But just in case, it's a cool little handout. And to close, I don't even know what time it is. It feels like it's running late. Yeah, we're okay. To close it out, for me, like I said, I think of promotion as a machine. I I don't. I actually have a band. I really like my band. It's the slowest band of all time. We've been together on and off since 2006. We've never played a show. We've never released anything. Because of that, we're not really a band. I'm aware of that. I'm not an idiot. But someday we're gonna do something. I think this is the year. Like it's not even something I measure in like days or months anymore. Like maybe this year is the year we're gonna do something. But I think we will. But because we haven't despite we have a lot of content, pictures and videos and a bunch of fun stuff, I'm not ready to promote it as a band yet because we don't really have anything to promote for. Where there's no record, there's no show. So I haven't turned the machine on yet. And when I do, you guys will know. You guys will all be aware of it because I will single each one of you out and be like, hey, I remember you guys came to the monthly music meeting. I think you might like my band. But the worst thing that I think bands do these days is they just kind of flounder in this weird, like, under-promoting area where, like, oh, I guess we do have a show. We haven't posted anything in 2 months, so but we'll put a flyer up and say we have a show, and then not do anything for another few weeks, and then, or maybe even just a week is like, oh yeah, by the way, reminder, we do have this show and things like that. For me, I want to see that a band is active, and that is daily or every other day post of content somehow, some form of content. It could be as simple as an Instagram picture that's shared across your social network. Like I said, lyric videos, rehearsal, practices, one of the things that we try to do here at the Oasis is we try to give you the CDs of your performance. If you're here and we have a camera here, we will try to film your band, or try to do a rig video, things like that. Sadly, our one functional camera that lived at the Oasis is no longer functional. It took a hard fall, but we're working on getting another one. But trying to provide bands with content, so that way they have something to promote. Make sure that once you've turned the promotional machine on, you are consistent with it. Using Wilder as an example, he programs all his drums in Superior Drummer, but it's not just Superior Drummer that he's posting. He's posting his virtual kits, like, oh, the only way you could play this sweet drum fill is if you had the China cymbal over here as opposed to over here, because physically there'd be no way to do it. And for me, I look for content. I'm curious to see what bands are posting, and I look at that. I'm like, oh, that's a creative thing to post, when he doesn't necessarily have to post a song or anything. It's just like, oh, here's a quick screenshot of what I'm doing in Superior right now, and it takes all of 10 seconds. Now, obviously, it's going to take like 3 minutes if you're trying to put it on Instagram, because getting the picture off your computer to Instagram is a whole other story. But just be aware of what you're doing with your promotional machine, and make sure that when the machine is on and you guys are trying to give the impression that you're an active band, always have something to promote. Don't over promote, but just give the impression that you're active. That's one of the biggest pet peeves I have for bands that I like, is that they don't show me that they are actually doing something. I have to think like, oh man, it was the last time I saw. Are they playing a show, or did they post anything ever? That just bums me out. Any thoughts or feedback on promoting things that you found successful that maybe other bands would have, or things that you found just failed miserably, that you're like, oh, band, I don't like your band, so you should try this? Anything?